Welcome to Smex Ed. Class is in session.
I'm your host, Amanda King, and I'm here to teach anybody who wants to fucking listen how to have the audacity to say fuck it to societal standards and live their most authentic life. This podcast is dedicated to bringing the sexual conversations we have behind doors onto the main fucking stage. Because sex, masturbation, squirting, guess what? It is all normal. And by bringing these conversations to the forefront, we help people feel less alone in this world. We help them feel safe. We help them gain their power back. We help them step into their confidence and express themselves sexually in this world unapologetically. Because it takes fucking audacity to be your truest self. And we have a boatloads of audacity all up in this bitch. So let me ask you this. Are you ready for some epic shit?
Hello, everybody. So today we are going to discuss the different types of lubricant when it comes to solo play and or sex. And we're going to discuss some pros, some cons of each, which would be best with toy use, which would be, we're starting out real strong, which would be best with non-toy use, and we're going to go over all of that information today. And we're going to talk about flavored based lubricants. I do have one here, so we're going to discuss those a little bit as well. So let's start with the flavored based lubricants. So flavored based lubricants are typically for people who don't really like the taste of genitalia. I mean, let's just be blatant and blunt about this. So these type of lubricants are typically used for oral sex, and it is to enhance the flavor of genitalia. So whether it is a vulva or whether it is a penis, some people find the taste and sometimes the smell unappealing of those areas, or they have a slight gag reflex when it comes to taste and or smell. So they purchase flavored based lubricants in order to, in a way, distract their brain and make it taste better. This one is strawberry, but they come in a variety of flavors. And there are pros and cons, obviously, to all of these. Pros is that if you do not like giving oral sex because of the taste of your own saliva and or the taste of genitalia, these are a perfect alternative to be able to use to give it a bit more flavor, make it a little bit more appealing to those who don't like it. The cons of this is obviously when you're putting a flavored lubricant on your genitalia, there is a possibility that you may have some type of reaction to it because of the flavoring and or the chemicals involved. So they aren't necessarily the best for sensitive skin, but every single person is different. So just make sure if you are going to use a flavored lubricant, you have the discussion with your partner first and let them know this is the lubricant I'm going to use. Look at it, make sure that you're not allergic to any of the ingredients in it. And if you are using it and either your mouth becomes irritated or their genitalia becomes irritated or their skin becomes irritated, stop use immediately. But these are a good option for those of you who don't like the taste of oral sex. Also, there are other things besides lubricants you can use as well, such as flavored latex condoms, dental dams. If you are a vulva owner, that will help decrease the amount of fluid and or add a little bit to the taste. Like if you use a flavored condom, that may help. So those are alternatives if you're not looking to use lubricants, but flavored based lubes are for oral sex. The next style of lubes we're going to talk about tend to be the most popular, which are water-based lubricants. And water-based lubricants can come in just your plain natural water-based, or they can come in, this one is tingling, cooling, they can come in warming, they can come with a little bit of variety. But water-based lubricants tend to be the most used lubricants for a few reasons. Number one, they're great on sensitive skin. Number two, they will not degrade your toys. They're toy safe, they're condom safe. Number three, they're not super sticky. They tend to feel more like water because water is the main ingredient. Number four, they're fairly long lasting. Silicone is definitely the longer lasting, but they will last a good duration of time. You need a decent amount, right? You have to put a decent amount of this lubricant on your toys in order for it to decrease friction and for you to be the most comfortable. Some of the cons is that you have to reapply it fairly often, right? Like versus silicone-based lubricant, water-based are going to run out a little bit quicker. So if we're looking longevity wise, this one is kind of long. If you use a silicone-based lubricant, that one tends to be much longer. But I think that's really the only con of water-based lubricants, because they are super great for sensitive skin. They can be used for toy use. They can be used during solo play, partner play. And I always have like a lot of questions of people saying things of like, oh, well, you know, how do I make, like, I feel a little dry down there. How can I like lubricate myself? Get a good water-based lubricant. Nothing is wrong with you if you need to use a lubricant. Let's just have that conversation as well. Not everybody has the ability to get wet and very wet. There are people out there, despite what you may believe, that do not get wet in the traditional sense that we are taught in sex education. There are people who can be fully aroused and not be wet down there at all. So the problem with this is that this can cause friction. This can cause them not to be able to enjoy penetrative sex because they cannot get naturally lubricated themselves. Lube is your best friend. Do not be afraid to use lubricants. It means nothing about you if you need lubricants. I use lubricants all of the time, even when I am naturally lubricated. Why? Because they help decrease friction and they ensure that I am not going to get hurt or I'm not hurting myself by trying to push a toy inside of me that is just not ready because my body isn't ready for it. Also, lubricants for anal sex always. Water-based and silicone-based are typically your best lubricants for anal sex. So make sure that you're always using a lubricant for anal sex. The second most common style lubricants, and I honestly don't own this lubricant, I don't have it here, is a silicone-based lubricant. So why don't I own one? Because typically with silicone-based lubricants, if you were using a silicone toy, they can cause the toy to degrade over time. And therefore, I don't use them because, as you can see, I have a lot of toys. I use toys often during solo play and partner play. Therefore, I would rather go for a water-based lubricant to ensure that my toys do not get damaged. But silicone-based lubricants do have their pros. For example, they're very long lasting. You probably only need to apply a silicone-based lubricant once during solo play and or partner play and or anal sex typically. If versus a water-based lubricant, depending on the duration of your playtime, you may have to apply it twice versus once. Silicone-based lubricants tend to be very sticky. This is because they're made of silicone, which is very slippery. They are the slipperiest, is that a word? Sure, lubricants that you can use. Silicone-based lubricants are typically great to use in shower play, bath play, anything along those lines. Water-based lubricants aren't. That's because water is going to wash off water. They're going to dry up fairly quickly, while silicone-based lubricants with water won't do that at all because basically oil and water, they don't mix. And so silicone-based lubricants are best to use with any type of water play. Pro of silicone-based lubricants is typically they have no smell, no taste. They are hyperallergenic, so they're good as well for sensitive skin. Silicone-based lubricants are not the best to use when we are talking P&V style sex because sometimes they can trap bacteria in through the lubrication. So if you are doing P&V sex, you know what those stand for. I would go water-based over silicone-based. Silicone-based lubricants are more expensive than water-based lubricants. They can also sometimes stain your sheets and your clothes. We're gonna get through this together, guys. We're gonna get through this. There is also oil-based lubricants, which I think are the least popular type of lubricants, and there are a few reasons behind this. Well, number one, the pros are they're super long lasting. They are very long lasting. However, they can clog your pores. They can stain your sheets. They can, what's the word I'm looking for? You can, like, they feel really oily. I wouldn't say it's the best feeling in the world with oil-based lubricants. It's extremely slippery, which is definitely a positive if you are looking for like less friction. However, they typically tend not to be safe for condom use because of the polyurethane. It tends to cause some type of reaction and break down the polyurethane within the condom. So you want to make sure that if you're using oil-based lubricants, I don't want to say not use condoms, but make sure if you're using a condom, never to use an oil-based lubricant. There we go. That's what I was going to say. They do work okay with internal condoms, like vaginal condoms, but typically for your penile condoms, is penile a word? We're going with it. I would not use an oil-based lubricant. Now, I've gotten a few comments on TikToks and stuff like that asking about like natural lubricants. People saying, oh, well, can I use coconut oil as a lubricant? Yes and no. Yes, it can help lubricate you. Yes, it is chemical free. Yes, it can help alleviate vaginal dryness. However, we never know how the body's going to react to anything, right? Even if it is something that is a natural product, so we always want to be careful before we use any lubricant that is not specifically made for sex. So for example, there's not a lot of studies with the use of coconut oil in regards to sex. So there are risks that could happen, such as infections, like vaginal infections. You never know how it is going to affect your pH of your vagina. Allergic reactions is another one. You don't know. And then the third one typically is they don't know how safe it is to use with latex condoms. So whenever you are looking to explore with lubricants, make sure you're doing your due diligence and researching the different types and figuring out what works best for you and your partner and your body composition, because two people, like, you never know what can cause types of allergic reactions, and we want to make sure that we know this beforehand so that we are not participating in the act and something harmful happens. So those are basically the three types of lubricants that you can use for solo play and or sex. So make sure you are doing your research when discovering or experimenting with lubricants. I would say the safest one, just in my personal opinion, is water-based lubricants. It tends to have the least amount of reactions and it works really, really well. It doesn't degrade your toys. So I always have like ample amounts of water-based lubricants at my own personal house. And so I would suggest starting there if you've never used lubricant ever before either, because you don't know how your body is going to react to lubricants. Always make sure, as ridiculous as this may sound, like make sure that if you're participating in any type of sexual act with another person, you know their allergies. Like, that is so vital when you are bringing in anything to sex. I even like food, y'all. If you want to eat food off of another person's body, make sure they do not have allergies. If you want to fuck in your kitchen, rightfully do it. Right over the island. I'm so happy for you. Make sure no one has food allergies because of cross-contamination that can happen in those areas as well. So just be aware of what you are bringing into a sex session. Latex condoms, lambskin condoms, like dental dams, all of these things contain ingredients. So you want to make sure that your partner and you have kind of a full, health check to an extent before participating in any of these. Or if you're going to bring something in, just say, hey, I have this water-based lube, just want to make sure we're good to use it. Or we're doing anal sex, I want to try this like silicone-based lube. Are you good with it? Consent is key. Never surprise a partner in the middle of a sex session with anything ever. No, just don't. Especially if it could cause harm to their bodies. But if you guys have any additional questions, I know this was kind of like a little quick training, but if you have any additional questions on lubrication, like all of these lubes are super great to use, whether it's solo play or partner play. Communication is key as always. And if you have any questions about lubricants, feel free to message me. Thought of a follow-up question I may get. So how much lubricant do I use? Well, that depends. First and foremost, even if you are naturally lubricated and you are sticking anything inside of your body via penetration, whether it's vaginally or anally, you always want to use lubrication, even if you are naturally lubricated. So what you want to do is you want to always lubricate whatever is going inside of you, whether it is a toy or genitalia. You also want to lubricate the area in which is being penetrated. So vaginally or anally. And I mean like, yeah, outside the anus, everything. You want to decrease the amount of friction. You want to make sure that everyone feels good and that it's comfortable and no one gets hurt. So you want to be able to lube both areas. The second thing is the amount of lube you want to use. If you were using a toy, you basically want the toy to kind of be slipping out of your hands. I'm not talking like juggling it falling on the floor, but you want it to be lubricated enough to where you can feel the lubricant on the outside. It does kind of move in your hands. If you are having anal sex of any sort, you want to make sure the genitalia is highly lubricated in order to slide in with the most effort. Going to answer another question, and I've already answered this before about anal sex, is do not use numbing creams ever with anal sex. Like, that's the whole point of your body, is to tell you when you were doing something too much, too hard, too rough, right? And if you numb the area, the anus, and you put lubrication on it, then you're not going to be able to feel that, what's the word? You're not going to be able to feel the friction that would tell you, hey, this isn't right, we need to slow down. You could cause harm to the anus. And numbing creams, when they sometimes get on penises, will cause a penis to go limp, because it numbs the penis, it stops sensation. So just don't use numbing creams. Use a lot of lubrication and a lot of communication when it comes to. And that is all for the lubrication training today. If you have any I don't know why I'm hitting off my knee so much today. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to DM me. Like I said before, I will do the best of my ability to get those answered for you. I love you all.
Thank you so much for listening to Smex Ed with Amanda. And some parting words for you today. Remember this: no matter how hard society pushes you down, no matter how many times you fall, as long as you get the fuck back up, they can never stop you. You are unfuckable with. You will win. Don't allow this world to dictate how you show up in it. Don't allow society to make you bend the knee. Instead, make them bend theirs. And don't forget, if you like what you heard, go on to iTunes and Spotify and leave your girl a review. Until next time, my beautiful people.